Hello and welcome to Why is Rugby Always Looking Backwards? Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and thank you for joining me today. Don't remember, if you watch this on YouTube, you can always put the thumbs up and at any point during the show if you like it, and obviously share it with all your friends. So, one of the things that I've noticed about rugby and rugby fans is that whenever we're talking about something that needs fixing, they tend to look backwards. So, for example, we look at the Six Nations and Italy's poor performances, and everyone goes, oh, we should kick Italy out and we should revert to the Five Nations. They're dragging the tournament back. When we look at Super Rugby, so many people say with misty-eyed eyes how wonderful Super 12s was, and that we should return to that format, and that all the expansions since then have just made it worse, not better. And also, when we talk about, I remember talking to one journalist out of Wales, and his recommendation was that we revert to long tours. We need to have long tours back, and that would really help to strengthen the game. Now, this really I find confusing. Because there are reasons, some good, some bad, as to why we've moved away from those sort of things. Why we don't have a Super 12 anymore, and why we don't have long tours anymore. The reason we don't have long tours anymore is partially player welfare, time during the season. Players just not want to be away from their families as much as well. They have a work-life balance kind of thing that we also hear about in the corporate world so much. So we're not going to go back to long tours. The only tour that's going to be of any length is going to continue to be the Lions Tour, and that tour, they're talking even that shrinking from the current 10 games down to 8 games already. So the question is how much shorter, how much smaller will that tour become? We can't turn the clock back. We've expanded from Super 12 upwards because there needs to be more rugby, there needs to be more cash, there needs to be more player depth in those countries. The Six Nations is now Six Nations because we need to start expanding the game. Same with the Rugby Championship isn't the Tri-Nations anymore. We need to expand and include other countries in rugby top tier. What we really need to do is start to see some more forward-looking administrators who take a lead, and then hopefully that will filter down through to the fans when they see that actually you can move forwards and have improvements. Obviously, professionalism was the right thing. We had to get to that stage, and the quality and standard of a lot of the rugby has improved with that. I mean, the fitness of the players is obviously up there. They can now earn a living for putting their bodies on the line and that kind of thing. The Rugby World Cup is a fantastic event that was a step forward and was something that didn't exist before either. So these step forwards are important, and we've got to keep going that way. One of the encouraging things, and probably the only encouraging thing out of the Super Rugby restructure from 18 down to 15 teams, has been the understanding that actually the reason that Australia is going down from 5 to 4, or one of the main reasons, is that they've looked forward to when the next contract rights will come up, which is in 2020. Well, that's when it will start anyway. Obviously, the discussions will happen before then. And they've looked at falling viewerships, less people in the grounds, and gone, actually, you know what, we can't sustain 5 teams. What we need to improve the product before we get to there. How are we going to do that? And one of the things they're doing is reducing the number of teams to improve the quality of the players they have available because of players they've lost to Europe and European clubs. So that's the only positive thing out of that. The way it's been handled has been an absolute farce and has been very damaging for the image of rugby in Australia and also in Super Rugby, as well as to all the players and staff in those clubs or in those franchises who have no certainty about what their future is going to be like next year, never mind in 3 or 4. So but I say that it is encouraging to see that. What I would like to see, and I think I've said this before, is Super Rugby telling us where they want to be in 10 years' time. What I'd like to see from the Aviva Premiership is some more long-term thinking as well. Again, I'd love all the Premiership teams, for example, to say our goal is to double our average attendance over the next 5 years. Now that would obviously that would obviously require a lot of those clubs to build new grounds or extend their grounds, but that would show that we've got some long-term sustainable planning in place, and that they have long-term goals and want to be moving things forward. I don't really see that out of the administration for pretty much anywhere in rugby. I see a lot of short-termism, looking towards the next tournament, looking towards the next rights package, looking towards the next sponsorship package. It doesn't seem to have the stability for people to make long-term commitments around these kind of things. The only long-term thing we've seen really has been the global calendar that's going to kick in after the next Rugby World Cup for 12 years, but that had to they had to put that kind of thing in place. I mean, things like Lions is a 12-year cycle, so there are certain tournaments that need that long-term sustainability and long-term planning around them, but very few others have that. So I would like fans to start looking forward and suggest new things and suggest how they see the game should go, rather than automatically retreating into, you know what, Super 12s was so great. Yes, it might have been, but it wouldn't bring in the cash required to hold on to the players, so it wouldn't be great now. The Five Nations was great, absolutely, but it doesn't spread the game and would mean long term the game would stagnate and die and wouldn't grow to be a proper global game, as we've seen the expansion into places like the USA, Japan, Georgia wouldn't be stepping up if it wasn't for things like the Rugby World Cup and the inclusion of these teams into the sort of core fold of the rugby family. I'd like people to be thinking, sort of saying, right, yes, actually, Super Rugby or in the Americas, what we're going to have is a Pro 12 Aviva Premiership Super Rugby level competition across the Americas. Let's look at how we can take Major League Rugby that's going to come up, take all the teams that are part of the Americas Rugby Championship. So Argentina, USA, Canada, Uruguay, Chile, and I've gone blank as to who the other one is off the top of my head, and the 6 teams. How do we get a European Rugby Championship style competition across those countries? How do we start moving that forward and growing that? That's the kind of thing I would love to see. I'd love to hear people starting to think about and talk about, rather than saying, you know what, well, let's retreat into our own little countries, let's retreat into our own how we used to do things, and that's actually the best way for rugby. It's not the best way. We need to be looking outwards, expanding, but it's got to be done with planning in place so that teams can build themselves up and not just be scrabbling around for players at the last minute and pretending to be a competitive side. So thank you very much for watching. That's my thoughts on where we should be looking with rugby. Please don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. The link is down below. Obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel and share this with your friends and all of that kind of cool stuff.